I'm Matt Hartsky with Backbone Unlimited. In today's episode, I'm breaking down 7 elk hunting tactics that actually kill bulls, especially when you're hunting deep, solo, or in areas where the pressure is high and the elk are smart. These aren't your typical go bugle and hope strategies. These are the next level. Field-tested tactics I've learned over decades of backpack hunting in the West, and they flat out work. So grab your notepad. Let's get into it. This is one of my go-to plays. I'm often out listening and bugling long before legal light. Not to hunt, but to locate. Why? Because bulls talk more freely in the dark, before the pressure hits, before they've been called at all day, before the wind swirls. Here's how to run it. Wake up early, hike to a high listening point, send a soft locator bugle down the drainages. Wait 2 to 3 minutes for a response. Mark the direction, distance, and the thermals. Please note, you are not engaging. You're just dropping a pin for a silent stalk at gray light. If you've been unsure of where elk are feeding at night in your area, this is the secret you've been looking for. If you want to take it a step further, I made a video about one of my most successful strategies using the knowledge of nighttime feeding patterns in this video. I'll also link to it in the description. You want to find them before the sun rises, and you'll own the first hour of the hunt. Now, here's one the bugle heavy guys often miss. Cow calls as a low pressure locator. In pressured units, bugles might shut bulls up, but a lone cow, that's a safe, natural sound. Here's how to run it. Walk quietly along a bench or timbered finger. Every 200 yards or so, stop and toss out 2 to 3 soft mews. Listen closely, not always for a bugle, right? But for a branch breaking, hoof steps, a soft chuckle. I've pulled bulls out of thick timber with nothing but soft cow elk talk. It's subtle, but it works. When the pressure turns up, smart bulls go to ground. They don't leave the country. They just find rut refuges. Now, these are quiet, nasty, overlooked spots bulls use to wait out the chaos. Here's how to identify rut refuge zones. Remote benches, far from trails, north-facing dark timber, deadfall and blowdowns, and hidden wallows near escape cover, usually up high, a lot of times in saddles or near saddles. Here's a bonus tip. Stop hunting sign and start hunting security. If the spot looks miserable to get into, it's probably perfect for elk. Bulls will lay low for 24 to 48 hours after pressure. That could even be just as something as simple as Labor Day four-wheelers up and down the roads. So a lot of times they won't get active again for 3 or 4 days. So you've got to find the sanctuaries, and you'll find the ghosts that everyone else blew out or can't find out in their regular open feeding areas. The next tip is a game changer. I call them stalking ribbons. They're subtle terrain lines, not roads, not trails, and they're used by elk to travel between feeding areas and bedding zones. Here's how to use stalking ribbons. Find subtle benches, timber breaks, or low-angled shelves. These are quiet lanes that parallel elk movement. A lot of times they move in there instead of on the trail or up on the ridgetop. Use them to shadow a herd with the wind in your favor. Think of these as the sneaky side streets of elk terrain. You're not in the open, you're not stomping up the gut, you're parallel tracking, and that's how you close the distance. Let's talk about calling. If your call sequence sounds like everyone else's on YouTube, the elk probably know it too. Instead, learn how to mix it up. Obviously, you want to be able to bugle, but then you might try going silent. Try a cow call, try a chuckle, then nothing. And this is just one example. There's endless ways that you could mix it up rather than just what the textbook says, right? Mimic real elk dynamics. Confuse bulls. use hunter patterns, let's call it, right? There was a time where everybody and their brother had a hoochie mama. I don't know, that anybody uses a hoochie mama much anymore because elk got used to it real fast, and hunters as well. Like, you could identify somebody using a hoochie mama right off the bat, right? When you use a lot of variety in your calling, this can build curiosity in the bulls, not caution. Big bulls aren't stupid, right? The herd bulls are experienced. If you want them to commit, your calling needs to create a scene, not just a noise. Now, tip number 6, before you charge into a herd, learn to watch first. I call it glass before you push. Every elk herd has a rhythm, right? Your job is to learn it before you break in whenever possible. Now, I understand in thick timbered areas and things like that, maybe that's not possible. But if you can observe the herd, here's how to run it. Pick a high spot early. You glass for bed to feed transitions, right? Might be low-lying or side-lying feeding areas. Then you've got your dark timbered ridges up there where the elk are going to transition from the feed to that dark timber. That's your transition area in between. Once you find the bull, notice position, the cows, their alertness, what happens when the wind shifts, where they're picking up their heads and where they're looking. Then build a slow, smart stalk based on what they're doing, not what you hope they'll do. Glassing doesn't end when you spot elk. It begins. It's how you read the situation, how you read the playbook before making your next move. Now, what happens when you counter an elk situation that isn't what you initially expected? Hunters panic oftentimes because they don't have a plan for when things change. And that's where the if-then playbook comes in handy. Here's a sample, but not an end-all, of the decision tree during the if-then. If the wind swirls, then back out and reapproach. If the bull goes silent, then switch to cow calls, shadow the herd. If you get busted, hustle to your next location as time permits. If things get quiet, prepare for the end of the day hunt. Maybe things just got quiet at the end of the morning. You don't know where the elk are for sure. Rather than tromping around and busting them out, get ready for your evening plan. Hunting is a game of reactions. If you don't have a plan, you'll fall apart when the pressure is on. But if you've already built a plan and a map for a lot of these situations, you adjust, you adapt, and you kill elk. There you have it. 7 next-level elk hunting tactics that work when the pressure's high and the bulls are cagey and when the odds seem stacked against you. These aren't theories. These are hard-earned tactics from 33 years of boots on the ground, trial by error experience. So use my experience as your advantage. If one of these tactics sparks some new ideas for your hunt this season, please drop it in the comments and share with an elk hunting buddy. If you want more of this kind of content, hit subscribe and check out backboneunlimited.com, where we have a growing team of backcountry hunters who hunt with backbone. Hunt hard, hunt tactically, never settle.